What happened here? Okay. This whole, pardon this was weirdness. I was trying to do, it didn't give me a chance to actually even mention what this video is about. So anyway, hi. I was trying to do something on my computer with this Facebook Live, and it didn't want to start the live video, so I'm working on my phone, and so hey, hi there. If you're just tuning in, at least you missed a little nonsense there the last few seconds. My name is Tammy, if you're unfamiliar with me. I am an internationally certified master clinical aromatherapist. I've been working with and studying essential oils and the human epigenome for 30 years. My specialty is essential oil education, as well as the chemistry of oils and how they influence human health. And the purpose of this today is to talk about vitamin D and, of course, COVID-19. I did a video a couple weeks back, and it was when everything was starting to happen, and there's been more information coming out over the last few days, let alone a few weeks. And one of the things about the COVID-19 virus is that it actually blocks it creates thick mucus, okay, and it's blocking the respiratory tract, so that it's difficult to breathe, and it's difficult to get in there to use any sort of medical treatment. That's the scary part about it. Now, the one thing I want to mention is that if we pay attention to what a lot of the things that they're suggesting, we can hear that it's actually very easily killed. I mean, if you're washing your hands, you can use saltwater gargles, lemon water gargles, vinegar water gargles, but the whole idea is to keep yourself hydrated so that we can continue to maintain thin fluids in our body. But we hear about washing our hands. If you just wash your hands, and if you're out in public and you go home, and you should be washing your clothes because soap is killing the virus. So if it's that easy to eliminate, then what's the problem in the human body? The problem is it's actually thickening the mucus. And so that's part of what I wanted to talk about today, actually a large part about what I wanted to talk about today. So I want to start here and then evolve into, or kind of transgress into, how we can support our systems further once we get past this crisis, if you will. And so the video that I did a couple weeks ago was beneficial in the sense that it actually talks about addressing viruses as a whole. And the essential oils that I listed in that particular video, and I also did it in a blog, was hoe leaf, laurel leaf, lemongrass, and lemon, because they're antiseptic. They actually help move fluids. So there's this component to actually helping the lymph system eliminate. They have an antiviral, if you will. It's more of a repellent kind of thing, but they actually just help the body remove these and get rid of the viruses. Now, that's the reason why I like oils. However, with this new piece in here regarding the thickening of the mucus, right now, regardless of what anything else that's ever been taught, as far as I'm concerned, because I've issued many words of caution when it comes to using ketones, any kind of mucolytic oil, because for long-term purposes, because they are neurotoxic. However, with regards to if you have a current or an active infection, regardless if you've been tested or not, using oils with mucolytic properties is necessary in order to keep the mucus in your chest from getting too thick and blocking your airways, because again, that's where medical treatment cannot infiltrate and actually help you. This is not in lieu of any medical advice. This is in addition to medical advice. So again, if you don't have any active infections, just making sure that you're using things like, as I mentioned, the lemongrass, the laurel leaf, the lemon, the whole leaf. I mean, there's just a lot of viral issues going on right now, just using those alone. Now, if you happen to spike a fever, it's wise to use star anise and peppermint. Peppermint only until the fever dissipates. I don't recommend using long-term menthol or products with menthol because menthol increases tissue permeability in the lungs, and we don't want to take any more in. We want to be able to exhale it out. Other things, now that I've been hearing some of these things, so eucalyptus is a good one. Helichrysum is a good one. Eucalyptus globulus, eucalyptus citradora, or eucalyptus radiata are safe. The latter two are safe for children. The globulus kind of gets a little bit, but if that's all you have, that's okay. Because again, this is more short term. This is an ongoing thing. So definitely including eucalyptus. Trust me, laurel leaf actually has eucalyptol in it. That's the 1,8-cyanol if you're looking at constituents. So that will actually help keep things loose. And again, helichrysum is very good for that. A couple of other oils that are very good for helping the respiratory system as a whole would be German chamomile. I'm a little bit hesitant with that one because that one's pretty potent when it comes to CYP and medications, but for the time being, if you have it, German chamomile will actually help open up that and help with the inflammation, as does myrrh. Myrrh would be your better choice in this case. So the additional oils besides the ones I suggested in the past are myrrh, the eucalyptus. Again, if all you have is a globulus, that's okay. That'll work because it'll actually help keep these fluids or the mucus from getting too thick. And you want to rub it on your chest. You want to put it on there. Another one which I strongly suggest that doesn't necessarily have a lot of antiseptic properties to it, however, it will help to keep the chest muscles loose, is marjoram sweet. So marjoram sweet and myrrh will do that. The eucalyptus, the helichrysum are all exceptional for helping to keep these things moving. And if you combine it with laurel leaf, it'll help flush it from the system through the lymph. Lemongrass will do the same thing. So take baths in these. If you have to use them with a carrier due to sensitivity, skin tissue sensitivity, then I would suggest you put down the carrier first. So I would put it on your chest and on your throat. This is where I would just go here because the virus is starting in the throat. This is where it's settling in the throat, and before it moves into the lungs, and it's there for 3 to 4 days. The star anise I mentioned earlier. Again, if you start to spike a fever, or if you're feeling like it might be more flu-like, star anise actually contains the very ingredients that were found to thwart the flu, and that's why we have Tamiflu. Star anise is the predecessor to Tamiflu. So if you can get a hold of star anise and just use it for these occasions, that's fine. Long term, again, I'm not even going to get into the long-term crap or the long-term stuff, because right now we're in a crisis. So star anise is very good for thwarting any potential flu-like. And again, this particular virus, COVID-19, does in fact live in the throat, and it takes 4 days before it gets into the lungs. So if we can address the throat immediately, put things on our chest, and again, put the carrier down first if you don't want to put the oils directly on your skin. You just want to put it in, you just put the carrier on, whether it's coconut, olive oil, grapeseed, it doesn't make any difference what you're using, and then put the oils on top of that. But use the oils straight. Okay, you don't want them mixed in anything further. We want to get this as so. The difference is if you mix 5 drops of oil into, say, a tablespoon, that's really significantly diluted. We need a more stronger dose, and that's the difference between an oil and a medication, is the concentration level. So if we just put the carrier on our skin and then directly apply the oils neat to that carrier oil, that'll protect your skin from developing any level of sensitivity. Now, as far as the chest is concerned, you can use a carrier oil, or preferably, to be truthful, I would go for a magnesium oil. which, by the way, you can make very easily with Epsom salt. You just, if you have a microwave and you got some water and you got some Epsom salt, you can, I don't even remember the recipe off the top of my head, but you can look it up. But it's just basically just Epsom salt and water, and you heat it. I forget the proportions, but you just heat it up in the microwave every 30 seconds, stirring it until the salt dissolves. And you can actually, that's your magnesium oil, and you can use that. Now, with that being water, it's a little bit, it's going to cause a lot of sensitivity and irritation. So if you had magnesium cream or an aloe, if you had an aloe gel with with that salt, I'm just thinking about wanting to protect the skin. So an aloe gel, but you want to put some magnesium on your chest, period. The magnesium helps to calm the immune system, and that's not the opposite of what we're trying to do. It's just trying to help relax everything, and especially in the chest, because keep in mind, right now we're all amped up. We're home alone, or not home alone necessarily, but we're isolated from public for the most part. We're hearing all these statistics, so just emotionally we're amped up. And then on top of it, if we're actually fighting something, we're stressed again. So the magnesium just kind of helps keep this relaxed and keeps this moving, because remember, once it gets into the chest, that's where we're having trouble. So the magnesium is really good for that. You could possibly take it as a supplement, but I don't recommend that. It's more effective to actually put it directly on the skin. Now, a lot of this comes about because I've been being asked about my opinion of this virus, and I do believe it's real. I'm not thinking anything's made up. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said anything that I've just said. On top of it all, my feeling is that we have, as a culture, with all of our antibiotic and antiseptic use, that we are, for the amount of it that this is going on, these bacteria and viruses build a resistance, not a susceptibility. They build a resistance to these things, and so therefore they adapt like the rest of nature. So, in my opinion, the COVID-19 virus is just more of a superbug that it's just resistant to, but it seems to, and that was my initial thought, but it seems to be more infectious or easily passed than other ones, and that's probably because it lives in the throat for a couple of days. So getting on this right now would actually be your shield, would be your armor, if you will, using any of the oils that I've suggested. And again, if you break out into an infection and you start to get congestion, and the funny thing is I did a video back on the beginning of March. I had just come out of radiation treatment, and the next thing I know is I had a fever, and I had the craziest cough I've never had before, with a lot of mucus that kept coming up for days. But all I did, these oils that I've recommended are the exact ones that I used, and I continue to use them today, not at the same level. Then I was using it every couple of hours, and I got through it. The fever was gone within 36 hours. I don't want to sound like, just 36 hours is about how long the fever lasted, and that's when I quit using the peppermint. But the other oils I continued until the cough actually went away. And today I will use some of these oils, the laurel leaf, the hoe leaf, the lemon, and the myrrh, and all of them, I use them a couple of times a day, just because I'm actually caring for my father-in-law right now, and he's 82 years old. He's got his own level of health issues. The last thing I need to do is go out to the grocery store and come back and potentially threaten his life with this. So I am armed. One of the things I want to say is also they talk about this virus being easily killed if you wash your hands, change your clothes when you come home. They're suggesting washing your clothes every day, but if you can't, just hang them outside in the sunshine, because that will kill the virus. So again, the virus isn't difficult to eliminate, it's just highly infectious. So if we can just protect ourselves, again, on our throat, and just do what we can to keep the fluids as thin as possible. And again, oils that are considered mucolytic are exceptional for that. Eucalyptus is not an antiviral, but it is a mucolytic. Helichrysum actually really supports the immune system. So any sort of tissue damage that goes on, it is a mucolytic. You don't need a lot of it at all. It's just, a couple of drops and you're good to go. But especially if you're combining it with these others, what we want to do is keep the fluids moving and keep that mucus as thin as possible. And even when I used to work in dentistry, you could tell somebody who didn't drink a lot of water because the saliva was thick. So the more fluid we drink right now, the more the body is able to keep these things thinned out. The other way to use the oils, if you are in fact dealing with, it doesn't make any difference if you're dealing with an infection or not. Another way to use it, one of the most effective ways, is to take a bath in it. 20 drops, total in the bath water. It doesn't mix with the water, right? So we know that it's going to kind of like attach itself to us. It gets into the rectum. If you're female, it gets into the vagina, and we get them internally immediately. And oils are metabolized within 15 to 20 minutes. So we're good with that. Now, beyond this pandemic, and when things begin to subside, yes, we're going to be coming into summer, and one of the things that I've discovered through all of my issues with cancer and so forth since December, I've spent a lot of time researching, and vitamin D, this became a part of my thing because vitamin D was recommended to me because of the medication they put me on. My bone density was borderline osteoporosis, and so they put me on vitamin D because I was also low on vitamin D blood serum. Now, I took that for 6 weeks and was retested after the 7th week, and I had gone from severely deficient to right smack dab in the middle of hey, vitamin D levels are up. Now, the thing is that that sounds good. The frightening part is that at least my medical doctor couldn't explain why. I didn't ask the question. The person that was with me asked the question to kind of be a little bit test the waters, if you will, because my medical oncologist said I didn't need to take any more vitamin D, that my levels were good. My general practitioner said that I should probably be taking vitamin D to maintain those levels. However, my curiosity always gets me. It's like, if the AMA and the CDC are reporting that the United States itself is epidemically low in vitamin D, and we see all of these health issues, and we don't have the ability to protect ourselves as well from these kinds of superbugs, what's actually going on? What's actually going to... Because what I am aware of, having studied these epigenome for all these years, is that there's a VDR, which is a vitamin D receptor, and the vitamin D receptor is separate from the body's ability to produce vitamin D. Now, having gotten skin cancer, again, this all prompted a lot of my investigation. In a nutshell, sunblock is just simply that, to prevent sunburn. It does not prevent sun damage. And the sad thing about it is that sunblock, a lot of these sunscreens actually are, I don't want to say they're toxic, but only as of 2019 did the FDA actually begin to determine the length of time that these sunscreen chemicals actually stay in the body at above, at a threshold that is considered not safe. For days. So the actual reporting on the FDA's website is that 4 days past a person stopped using the sunscreen, these chemicals remained at a high threshold level in the body, in the blood. And I'll get back to vitamin D in a minute. So the fact that we're using a lot of sunscreen is blocking our body's ability to produce vitamin D. This, number one, explains why we have, and mind you, it's not just putting it on in the summertime. We're being told to wear it while it's cloudy outside. And again, I completely understand this, but these sunblocks are in fact blocking our ability to produce vitamin D. This is another reason why statins, our cholesterol medications, are in the top
tier of medications prescribed, because cholesterol is used to produce vitamin D. So we're not producing it. And so we have high levels of cholesterol that's no longer being used. And then the other problem is the vitamin D receptor. And the vitamin D receptor is what takes the vitamin D from our blood and transports it into the cell. And the vitamin D helps to regulate calcium, and it's used for the hormonal system and so on and so forth. So we have a succession of problems here with high cholesterol levels, low vitamin D levels. We're seeing an increase in obesity. We're seeing an increase in autoimmune disorders, because calcium is used to activate the immune system. So right now, the calcium in our food is being used to keep us protected and help the body produce the chemicals necessary to keep us safe. At the same time, vitamin D is used to regulate all that and maintain a stable hormonal system. And it's an interesting thing, because the doctor didn't know this when she was asked, how does the body actually use the vitamin D? She couldn't answer. Her words to us were, we don't really know. Now, I had already done and looked into this, and that's what I did the last video, which is cortisol interferes with VDR activity. And that's not a bad thing. It's just it alters VDR activity. And that's because the body is stressed. So remember, vitamin D is used to regulate our calcium levels. However, under stress, the autonomic nervous system is in fact activated, and therefore it activates the immune system. It's our defense mechanism. Okay, so calcium is being used, and vitamin D is not necessary at that point as necessary. And the whole concept of the body is it self-regulates, so that it can begin to get back into more thriving mode as opposed to surviving mode. So the whole point to all of this is to begin allowing ourselves to have sun exposure, 5 to 15 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. That's it. At the peak time. And then if you can find, natural sunblock as possible. I am trying to think. So oils that I've been using in my salves for sunblock, and what I actually used for my radiation treatment, included calophyllum, sea buckthorn, and grapeseed oil, as well as calendula. They actually have an ability to block us from the sun. But the reason I use those with a couple of other things, copaiba and helichrysum, because I'm just like thinking, because they have the ability to regenerate healthy tissue. And this is some of the things that I want to talk about more of in aromatherapy as a lifestyle. I've kind of not been involved with that too much, which is a separate group, but everybody's welcome to be a part of that. But the whole point of this is, I've just been dealing with my own health issues. Like I said, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in November, and I just kind of been, and then I ended up traveling here as soon as I got out of treatment. So I've been doing a lot of research, and I've got a lot of more information to share. But the reason for that is because these oils I selected have the ability to improve DNA repair, which means healthy tissue regeneration. So any sun damage that occurs is actually being repaired as you're using it, and it does prevent you from being burned. In the meantime, though, it is important to at least get some exposure to improve our body's ability to make vitamin D. Sorry, my head is all over the place right now, because I'm thinking I'm putting all of this stuff in a newsletter. I'm putting it on the website. So there's a lot of information coming out, and I really want everybody to have this, because our health is important. Our wellness is important. And so that comes back to wellness is the important concept to health. And so the more we can do what we can to purposefully relieve our cortisol levels, maintain those cortisol levels and help keep things in check. Because the second cortisol goes up, estrogen goes up. And then, and the reason that happens is because the body begins, as soon as cortisol levels go up, and this is where it gets to be a catch-22, because the second the immune system is activated, the cortisol goes up, which then diminishes like I said, it diminishes the function of the VDR. As soon as cortisol levels go up, the body begins to produce aromatase. Now, my thing is, whenever I hear that, like, aromatase bad, we want aromatase inhibitors. Let me just say this. If the body's producing something, there's a damn good reason why it's producing it. And aromatase has a very good reason. It takes the androgens from the adrenals and it converts them to estrogen, because estrogen is used to keep cortisol in check. So we have this checks and balances system going on, but if we're not doing what we can to deliberately reduce those levels, meaning mentally and emotionally, and really doing what we can to protect ourselves from the environment. And right now, these environmental threats with these viruses, and I don't even want to go into man-made chemicals, but just with these viruses and bacteria, you guys, 95% of the adult population around the world, and this is being reported by the World Health Organization, is living with at least one bacteria or virus that is dormant. That could be Epstein-Barr, that could be a chlamydia pneumonia type of bacteria, that could be herpes zoster, that could be Lyme, and apparently now COVID-19, because people that are recovering from this illness are still in fact showing positive for having that. And so it's just evident that these microbes have been in the body. I mean, gosh, 20 years after I had mono, and they did blood test on me, and the doctor actually came to me. This is when I first realized this. The doctor actually came to me and said, "You've had mono." And I looked at her and I said, "How did you know?" And she says, "Because you have Epstein-Barr virus in your system." So these things go dormant. So, and when these dormant bacteria and viruses are just there, and they produce these biofilms. This is the reason why most of these antiseptics and antibacterials are not getting rid of them. Although essential oils have been shown to be able to deactivate that biofilm, it's the second we introduce a new virus into the body or a new bacteria into the body, they will reactivate these dormant microbes. That's an important thing to remember. These are the environmental threats that I'm talking about. They will reactivate these. And so there's always something to be protecting ourselves from. So if we can do what we can to use things that help support the digestive system, that improve the use of acetylcholine in the digestive system. So oils that are like laurel leaf is a really, I'm just thinking, and alemi are the first two that come off. And again, like I said, I'm putting all of this in a newsletter and on a blog, so you can take a look at it and read it. But I wanted to do this now because we're in the midst of this, and but these particular types of oils will actually help with the use of acetylcholine in the body, which is necessary for respiration, it's necessary for digestion, and acetylcholine is absolutely necessary for the production of immunoglobulin A, which is done in the bowels. And this is our first line of defense against any kind of virus. So I'm going to give you some more oils now. So things like palmarosa, lemongrass, I've mentioned that earlier, is another good one. Laurel leaf is a good one, and alemi is a good one. These will actually help the body use acetylcholine, again, in the respiratory system and in the digestive system, which is where the immunoglobulin A antibody is produced in response to these viruses. So if anybody says that they have a weak immune system, I say go back and check your digestive system. So those kinds of oils right there. And of course, there's other oils that are really good for the digestive system, but really those help with the use of acetylcholine. And in turn, that will help the body better utilize the vitamin D, which is essential for protecting us from degenerative disease. It's not necessarily used in the production of antibodies, as I mentioned, calcium is, but magnesium helps to keep it in check so that we can, and it's not about taking a calcium supplement, we don't need to do that, I do encourage the use of magnesium right now because many of us are deficient in magnesium, because stress will do that very well, diminish your magnesium levels, and as do medications, and the fact that we're not making enough vitamin D, we're not using vitamin D properly, in order to appropriate the use of calcium, keeps magnesium at a low level. Okay, so those would be the things that I would suggest right now, and do what we can to get ourselves, protect ourselves right now, and in the meantime, be looking into the future so that we are better equipped for anything else that comes our way. Because as viruses and bacteria continue to evolve or adapt to our technology, our antiseptics, our antibacterials, that's what they're doing. Our antimicrobials, they're a life force. They're a life, they're a living organism. So they, of course, are going to adapt just like the human body adapts. And so there's always going to be something to combat, if you will. Nothing to be alarmed about, but just it's just really helping our body defend itself against these things that are continuing to show up in our environment. Anyway, I'm going to leave it with that. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'm going to save this and keep it on here so that you can review it. And let me know if you have any questions. And again, be looking. I'm going to put it on the blog, and if you haven't signed up for my, join my email list, the newsletter is about to come out. I'd love to share those bits of information with you as well. All right, take care, be safe, and just know that I love you guys, and just be safe. All right, bye.